Hey everybody, Caleb here, and in this video we are going to go ahead and build out the interface and add some assets that we're going to need for our BingeBot application. So let's go ahead and let's begin by creating a new Xcode project, and then we'll add in the assets and build the interface in the storyboard. So click Create a New Xcode Project. We're going to make this a single view application, and I'm going to call this BingeBot, just like so. Don't tick any of these boxes for now and just click Next, and we're going to save this wherever. I have an iOS projects folder that I'm going to save it into, and I'm going to pull this open in full screen. What we're going to do next is to click on assets.xcassets, and in the downloadable resources link in this video, you can download this resources folder that has 3 image sets, and if we drag them in like so, we will see that there is an Add Show button that looks like this, a background, which looks like this, and a binge button that looks like this. Now, normally I would build out a custom button subclass with rounded borders and rounded corners, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to use these images, which is just fine. And with our assets added, we can now build our interface. So I want that cool blue gradient to be the background here, and so in order to get that, I'm going to go ahead and click on the object library and search for image view. I'm going to drag it on just like so and stretch it to fit the full width of the screen just like that. Then I'm going to use the pin tool here, and I'm going to pin it 0 from the top, left, right, and bottom, and click Add for Constraints. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the image to actually fill the image view. And I can do that by clicking on the Attributes Inspector and clicking BG for the background. There you go. Pretty cool. It looks great. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag on a label for the top that will say BingeBot. So go ahead and drag on a label, just like so. And I'm going to make this say BingeBot. And you know what? Just for fun, I'm going to add in the little robot emoji just to give it some personality. That looks pretty cool. And let's go ahead and let's set the font to be bold. And let's make it a little bigger, maybe size 24. And I want the text to be white, so I'm going to set that as well. Okay, so that looks pretty good. We're going to set that in place there, and let's actually pin this 0 from the top, and then we're going to align it horizontally in its container. And that looks great. Now, that will stay exactly where it is on all devices. Next up, we're going to go ahead and add our shows label here, which will display all of the different shows we add into this application. So let's drag on another label for that. And you know what? I'm actually going to copy and paste a label right below it, because this label is going to say shows, and then beneath is where we're actually going to put some shows like Scandal, Breaking Bad, Rick and Morty, what else? Mythbusters, Adventure Time. As you can see, lots of different shows we could put, and we're going to stretch it there to make it fit a little better. But as you can see, it's only fitting on a single line. So let's go ahead and let's add a bit more opportunity for lines. I'll do 5 lines maybe. That looks pretty good. And now we can do some formatting on this. So I'm going to make this size maybe 12. I'm going to make it bold. Okay, that looks great. Well, let's make it bold. Yeah, maybe heavy. Yes. And let's set that to be white. Perfect. And then we will set the shows label here right below it. We're going to just change the font to have a white color. That looks pretty good. Very cool. So now what we want is for these labels to be close together and to kind of dynamically stay together at all times. And so what I'm going to do in order to ensure that that happens is I'm going to put them into a stack view. So what I'm going to do is click on shows, hold the command button, and then click on the other label. Then down here, there's a button for creating a stack view, and we can embed them in a stack view. So click that, and as you can see, they snap together nicely, just like we want. And we can even reduce the spacing so they're a little bit closer together. That looks great. But now we need to set some constraints so that it actually fits in this space. And let's do that by basically pinning it. Let's do 16, well, how about 20 from the left, 20 from the right, and let's do 20 from the top, which is going to be the label here. Now, if I actually add those constraints, you'll see they snap together very nicely and it'll stay in its place. Since we didn't set a height constraint for this stack view, however, what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and essentially allow the height to expand dynamically as we need. But you might be noticing that this label is not filling the entire stack view, and stack views are a bit buggy, but it appears that we do have this on the leading property, which means it's going to hug the left side. We want to set it to fill, and what that's going to allow the label to do is to expand to the full size of the stack view. The shows label also does that. Pretty cool. So that is now in place. That is great. Next, we need to go ahead and add the big label below, which is going to essentially show what show, or display what show we are going to be watching. So let's go ahead and let's add a label. We're going to need a label basically just to add a little bit of fun that says BingeBot has spoken, you should watch. Below that, I'm going to copy and paste a new label. That's going to be for the name of the show. And then beneath that is going to be our button. So drag that on there. And let's go ahead. Let's just set up the button while we're here. We're going to get rid of the text. And we're going to set the image to be binge button. Look at that. That looks pretty great. So that's going to stay there. When we tap this, it's going to choose a random show from our list and display it in the label. Very cool. Next up, we are going to go ahead and set this to say BingeBot has spoken. You should watch, colon. Okay, a little bit of fun there. And we're going to actually reduce the size of this to 12, just like our shows label here. We're going to set the font to be white, and we're going to make it heavy as far as its style goes. That looks great. Very cool. So we'll center that. And then this label, we're going to bump the size way up, maybe to 30. Cool. We're going to set the font to be of white color. And we're going to just put in one of the show names, Adventure Time. Very cool. Okay, that looks great. Now, there is something we should keep in mind, is if the show name is way longer than Adventure Time, some shows out there have long names, we want the font to be able to scale automatically. And so what I can do is I can turn on a feature called Auto Shrink, and I can set a minimum font size. So with that in mind, let's set a minimum font size of, how about 14? And in a second, we'll be able to actually test this out and see how it works. So what we're going to do next is we're going to actually put all of these into their own stack view, and you'll see why in just a moment. But we're going to go ahead and do the same thing as above. Click the embed button there and choose stack view. And as you can see, it aligns itself very nicely. I think this looks exactly how we would want it. And we're going to now pin it and center it. Something to know, though, about stack views is if you try to click the stack view, you're going to inadvertently click an item in the stack view and possibly accidentally remove it. So what I find is easiest is if you click the stack view in the list over here in the document outline, and then you click the stack view to try to move it. There you go. So let's go ahead and let's pin this 20 from the top, which is going to be the bottom of this label, 20 from the left, 20 from the right, and there you go. Now it's all done. So we have our labels, we have our button in place, which that looks fantastic. Now all we need to do is to add a text field, which is going to allow us to enter the name of our show and our add show button. So let's do that by typing UI text field. This is how we're going to actually enter shows into our app. And I'm going to just stretch it wide there so we have a nice big text field. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually scroll down and set the background to have a clear color, just like this. Okay. As you can see, the border still shows up, which is pretty cool. And we want to actually leave a little bit of a placeholder here that says enter a binge-worthy show. So let's add that in the placeholder property. Enter a binge-worthy show. And as you can see, it shows up there, but I want it to be centered. So I'm going to center the font. I'm going to set the font to actually be a little bit bolder. Nice. There you go. Very cool. And if I actually enter text into here, check this out, you'll see it's black and it looks off-centered here. When you actually run the app, it won't be, so just bear in mind. But go ahead and get rid of that, and we're going to change the font to white so that it matches the theme of the rest of our app. And now we just need to add a button, and we are done building our user interface. So drag a button right below the text field there, get rid of its name here, button, and we're going to set the image to add show button. And as you can see, it shows up right there as we want. Next, we're going to go ahead and put this inside of its own stack view. And again, remember, I will tell you why we're doing this in the next video, but embed it in a stack view just like before. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we have been doing. 20 from the top, 20 from the left, and 20 from the right. And as you can see, it is perfectly in its place. But iOS is trying to be a little too helpful for us. It thought that we were trying to center align all of these, when in reality, we want it to fill to the full width of the stack view. So choose fill, and as you can see, it spreads out just like so, and everything looks amazing. Looks really, really good. So with all of this in mind, we have a stack view that contains a text field where we can enter a binge-worthy show. We have our other stack view that has our label and our binge button, and we have a stack view that contains labels with all of the shows that we add. Pretty cool stuff. We're going to build this in just a second to make sure it looks good, but first we need to actually do a little bit of stack viewception. We're going to go ahead and take our two stack views here that have our text field and our big label, and we're going to put these inside of their own stack view, and we're going to talk about why this is in just a second. Now, when you do that, all of the previous constraints will be removed, so we're going to need to actually pin this 20 from the top, 20 from the left, and 20 from the right one more time. Now it is in place, and we're going to actually build it to a little simulator here and see how it looks. But the reason we're doing this is basically now we have two stack views inside of one stack view. If we set this stack view to be hidden, the label and the text, or the text field stack view rather, is going to appear up here until we make it unhidden, and then the constraints and the layout will automatically be updated so that this one shows and this one stays below. You'll see what I mean in just a second, but it's really cool. So here's our simulator. Let's see how we did. Let's compare it side by side to our interface here. Okay, very cool. Our text field here, if we type, the text is nice and centered. Our buttons work, our labels are in place. We are now ready to move on to the next video where we're going to actually start writing the code that makes this app work. We're going to link up all of our elements to our view controller file, and we're going to start writing the code that makes it work. I'm really excited. Let's head over to the next video and let's do that now. I'll see you there.